Hi folks, and welcome to Coffee Beans and Music Scenes episode number 4, your go-to channel for all things music production, industry and news. I am your host Smudge, and as always I have my co-host and co-conspirator Mr. Tony Ross. How you doing, mate?
Yep, everything's good here. Good morning, Smudge. Hope you're well.
Fantastic. All doing good, mate, all doing good. We've got another fun-packed, action-packed show. We've got loads of goodies for you today, all culminated in the spotlight topic, which is, can you use headphones exclusively for music production? And we've got our usual 6 news features to discuss with you as well. Before we get into those topics, grab a coffee, sit back and relax. And there's a brief update. Last time round we featured the IK Multimedia Group Buy. That has now been extended through to the 31st of August and is now sat at 14 plugins for the price of one. And I know Tony's already dabbled in the Group Buy, and you've just realised you've got another 7 plugins to choose for free, haven't you?
Yeah, I just signed up actually about a couple of weeks ago, and I downloaded the 3 plugins that I really wanted in my collection. And I kind of forgot about it. So before we came on to record the show, you gently reminded me that there has been an extension. So happy days. I'll be immediately going on to the IK Multimedia site when I've finished recording this show, and I'll be downloading some more plugins.
Nice. I'm anticipating, bearing in mind this is recording as of the 9th of August, and if it's running through to the 31st, I expect it's going to reach max tier. So max tier is 16 for the price of one. So yes, you basically get 15 free plugins if it hits the max. At the moment, you get 13 free plugins. But once again, it's a great buy. I just think for the price of what's probably the most expensive one, 150 quid.
I think it's 175 for one of the reverbs, for like Famous Studio, or for one of the other studio plugins, or for the is it called the Lucerne Mastering Suite?
I can't remember the name. The Lucerne Mastering Console.
That's 175. Yeah, that's the most expensive one, I think.
Yeah, so for 175 quid, you're effectively getting 14 plugins. I don't think that's bad at all. Is it just over 10 quid a plugin? When they retail generally over £100 each, so you certainly can't grumble at that. So that's now extended through to the 31st of August, and we'll leave some links in the description down below if you want to join into the IK Multimedia Group Buy. And just briefly, before we get on to this, Tony is working behind the scenes on some more content around music production. Tony, do you want to have a quick chat on some of the things you've got kind of lined up?
Yeah, sure. I think we committed last month. I was chatting with you online, Smudge, and I was talking about writing some new music. And I think you said, why don't we commit to making an EP? So I've actually started the process. And the idea that I'm going to have is that I will be presenting a mini-series of videos online on the PSA YouTube channel. I'm talking about music production, and then just showing you behind the scenes, as they say. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but behind the scenes, a step-by-step approach about how I produce music, basically. And I'll be producing a series of videos that will document and diarize, if you like, the making of my EP. I don't know how many tracks there'll be yet. I've almost completed the first one. I think that will be interesting content, and I'll be bringing that to the PSA channel very soon.
Fantastic. Yeah, for my sins, I said that I'd join in and do an EP myself as well. Yeah, Tony's going to be helping me produce it, and we're going to get it. The whole plan is to get them both released by the 31st of December. And what we kind of wanted to do is we wanted to kind of do this with a view to not only sharing some of our processes. It's going to be a bit of an eclectic mix because Tony's EP is going to be totally different to my EP, but we can show you some of the production techniques and some of the songwriting techniques that we're going through. And Tony's going to showcase his production skills and show you how you can achieve certain things as we go through the EP process. So join in. If you're one of these people that's got loads of ideas but you never completed an EP or something, then join in. So we're going to do this until the 31st of December. That's when we're going to release these EPs. So by all means, join in and follow the progress as we go through our EP journeys. So we're looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. I sat down and did a bit of recording last night. So yeah, we're certainly on the right track. So let's get into these first news topics, Tony. And we've got the first one up from you, which is it's a really interesting one. So what's your first news topic?
It's a plugin that I found while watching another video on the internet via YouTube. It's called GOYO. It's a voice separator. And to cut a long story short, what it basically does, I think it's some kind of denoise plugin, de-reverb, de-voice. It's an all-in-one plugin. So it kind of looks like at first look, whether it's competing's the wrong word, but it kind of looks like if it's a replacement for RX noise reduction. I can't remember the name of the module exactly in RX, but it will take really bad recordings with lots of background noise, whether you're standing by a river or whether you're actually recording something standing by the side of the road, or you have a noisy fan generator in your room. You can actually use this plugin, obviously, to remove that unwanted noise. So I thought this was quite interesting because it's a simple plugin with just 3 knobs. There's an ambiance dial, which really works on everything other than the voice. So if you're talking about things like static hum or cars honking or music in the background, it'll do this and everything in between. So it's really an ambiance knob. And it's just a simple knob. You just turn it left to right to obviously decrease the amount of hum or the noise that's just distracting you in the background. And then there's a third knob called voice. Basically, it'll help you just remove all the unwanted noise that you get from recording using microphones, whether it be ambience in the room or whether it just be basically reverberations. It will actually just help you really process your voice to its clearest form. So it's probably the closest, they say on the website, that you will get to studio quality for your vocals. And the idea, of course, is you can actually turn the knob down and you can reduce all this unwanted noise. And the third one is a voice reverb. So the reverb room sound and other sort of spatial artifacts that you get with audio recording, they can also be reduced using the voice reverb button. And this is useful in boomy spaces with lots of echo, for example. So if you're recording in a home studio, unlike most of us do, I'm in my cellar at the moment. There's a natural amount of reverb in the room. I don't have an awful lot of audio treatment in the room. So this is extremely useful because you can actually use this voice reverb function just to dial down and get rid of some of those reflections that obviously reduce the audio quality. So it can take a really bad sounding audio quality recording from any circumstance, probably, and then actually transport it to something that's usable. So I think that's actually where it's quite useful. And of course, you can put it on individual tracks, you can put it on buses, and you can put it on the master bus. So it's a simple plugin. The company is called GOYO. I think that's the name of the company. And at the moment, it's actually available free. You can download a beta version. Doesn't cost any money. And the reviews that I've seen online, people are actually saying that this is surprisingly good for a free plugin. The quality is very, very good. I tried it myself yesterday, and it worked very, very well on a vocal recording that I took from a session from my band, That's Fumado Effect. So I just took a raw vocal and I tried it. And actually, I got very good results using it. So I think you just have to give your email address and they will send you a link to your mail account and you can then download and you can use it. It's compatible with native M1, M2, Apple Silicon chip products. It's available on Windows. It's available on Mac. And it's free. I think what might happen, there could be once we go beyond the beta phase, they might charge you some money for the plugin. But of course, the hope is that they'll keep this particular version available as a free plugin. And then the paid version might then come up with obviously a few more whistles and bells and a few more extras. So yeah, I would recommend download it. The beta version doesn't cost anything and just use it and see whether it's useful. Because I mean, RX10, the noise reduction module, I think you have to buy the entire RX suite. And if you want to use the noise module as an individual plugin, you've got to buy the advanced version, I think standard or advanced. So it's quite expensive. So I think this would be a very good alternative and certainly worth looking at.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And like you say, it's currently in beta and it's available via goyo.app. And we'll leave full links in the description down below. It's AI powered by Supertone. And as Tony's mentioned, it's currently in beta testing. And yeah, it looks like a really interesting option. And for something that's free and available for beta, certainly worth having a check out, test it, see if it works for you. And yeah, fantastic. I think that's a great spot.
Yeah, it's really good for people like myself, like many other people working in, I would say, environments that aren't studio quality. So everyone wants to try and get those studio recorded vocals and get that quality. AI seems to be playing more of a role now. So this is another AI plugin, yes, and we don't want to get bogged down with the arguments about AI. But I mean, certainly for amateur musicians or hobby musicians, or even people working semi-professional, even professional, the whole gambit, it could be a useful plugin. And it looks really, really simple to use. I've used it. I forgot to say, actually, there are mute and solo functions. So you can actually take each one of these three elements, the ambience, voice, and voice reverb, and you can actually solo, for example, the voice module, and you can actually physically hear how much of the audio you are actually reducing. So you almost have like a bypass or an A/B comparison. So that's actually something that's built into the plugin, and I was reasonably surprised to see in a free plugin. So I think it's worth giving a shot.
Fantastic. Totally agree. Right, well, the first one up from me is a bit of a it's a bit of a recommendation of sorts, and this is it's a plugin called FIRComp2, FIRCOMP2, and it's a plugin that's available via johnvaudio.com. And this is like I say, it's not something I've actually tested yet, but this is actually a recommendation, and it's claimed to be one of the most cleanest transparent compressor limiters that one of my friends has tried. So a colleague compatriot who's is a mastered engineer tried this out, and they said it's just absolutely amazing. And it's an ultra clean compressor limiter, and it's available via johnvaudio.com. It's pretty much, the UI is pretty bare bones, but then it's one of those things that if its functions are exceptional, then you're not too fussed about the UI. The UI is great to look at, but it's one of those things that just adds a lot of CPU power, and it just kind of start to tax your system more just because it looks a bit prettier. Whereas this is something that's got zero or low latency and low CPU. Typical compression and typical dynamics processing functions. You've got your sidechain high pass features, you've got a ratio knee attack and release, and then you've also got threshold and makeup. But they have got some of these nice extra bells and whistles. So, for example, you've got things like VCA mode, couple peak mode, but you've got this is one of my most favourite features of any plugin is when you've got a Delta Listen button. So the Delta Listen button effectively solos just what the plugin is actually doing. So in terms of a compressor or a limiter, if you was to engage the Delta function, all you'd hear is just what's being compressed and what's being limited. You don't actually hear the bulk of music. So at least that way, if you're trying to, let's say you're trying to target certain transients with your compression, you can use the Delta solo function, and it will actually enable you to listen to see whether it's actually hitting those transients, and you can get more of an idea as to whether you're hitting them too hard or not enough. So I think that's an absolutely fantastic feature on any plugin, and that's what's available on this one itself. It's got things like innovative digital envelope detection, allows for much lower distortion than typical pre-compressors. Optional look ahead, gain smoothing for an even clean sound. Shapeable release stage with musical high history dependent behavior. Sidechain high pass filter and external sidechain ability. Stereo options with stereo link and balance. Interesting, perceived loudness metering with easy makeup gain and balance snapping. So that, to me, suggests it's going to be measured in LUFS, rather than just peak. So that's really interesting. Switchable vertical horizontal gain reduction metering with adjustable range. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Because I don't know, but I mean, I suppose it's all preference, but just something to suit your eye, whether you like the gain reduction meters. Sometimes having them in a horizontal fashion, sometimes that can work better. It can be easier to see. Low CPU, 64-bit DSP code, so it's not an older style 32-bit plugin, and zero latency with look ahead off, but with look ahead on compensated latency of 1.5 milliseconds. So even with the look ahead feature, it's still really low latency. You can get a free version for Linux, but the other versions are available, and I think it's really, really cheap. The price of this is coming in at £23.
Oh.
He's literally, my understanding, it's just a one-man band, and it's such a small company, which is why it's obviously something that's growing. It's not really known about too much. But the demo versions are available in 64-bit VST3 for Windows, and you've got VST3 and Mac AU for Mac OS X 10.11 Plus. It says it's got universal binary version, contains both the native M1 and native Intel code. So yeah, it looks like it's something that's going to be available for all platforms as well. And then you've got installation VST3 for Windows, Mac OS VST3, and Mac OS AU2. It does mention that it's not going to be available in any 32-bit modes, and it also mentions with Apple M1. It's distributed as universal binary, which contains native code for both M1 and Intel CPUs. They share the same code base. However, the Intel version has received much more testing so far, and John intends to do much more thorough testing once he has direct access to an M1 Mac itself. So it supports M1 Macs, but just be aware that if you're not using one of the M1 chips in Intel, what do they call it? Native mode, Intel mode?
Rosetta. I think it's called Rosetta mode.
That's it, yeah. So if you're not using it in Rosetta mode, then obviously he's not tested it quite as in depth as with the old Intel Mac system. But I just think it looks great, and certainly for my use case as a mastering engineer, I think that's kind of like the holy grail. Sometimes when you want a dynamics processor, you don't want something that's going to colour the sound. You want something that's going to be clean and transparent. And if you've got something there that's going to be able to do the job, and it's low CPU usage, then I think it's an absolute win-win. For 23 quid, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. So that was the Third Comp 2 by John V Audio.
No, I think that's a great plugin. And just a quick note about Rosetta. I adopted, rather foolishly, I updated my Mac to, I can't remember what operating system it was. And then I bought myself an M1 MacBook Air. And I was a bit worried. I thought, would my applications actually run on it? I actually found out that using the Rosetta translation function is that most of the apps that were designed for Intel actually ran reasonably well. In fact, I can't think of a single app that didn't actually not work. And also I remember, because as most people know, I'm using Studio One as my digital audio workstation, is that ran actually in Rosetta mode before PreSonus updated it and made it compatible with M1 Silicon. It worked quite well. So although this plugin might not be 100% developed for use with M1, if the claim is that it actually works, I'm sure that Rosetta will actually function quite well. And I'm pretty sure the plugin would work. Although, of course, I can't give any guarantees. But that's my experience using Rosetta translation on Macs.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. He kind of even references it on here. Go in, try the demo versions. So it even mentions, please try the demo versions to check full compatibility with your system before purchasing. So it's really good that he's offering this, this demo version. Try it on your system, see if it works, and if it works, then fantastic. I think it looks like a really good option, and I've been told on very, very by someone who I regard and respect immensely that it is a fantastic plugin. So I'm certainly going to be checking that one out in the future. So don't worry about that. Any excuse to buy another plugin, Tony? Any excuse?
Absolutely, absolutely. The more plugins, the merrier. I can't get enough of them. I only use about 6 of them, but I mean, I really need to have those 2,000 plugins in my library just in case.
Exactly. I need another compressor just in case. One of my other digital compressors don't work properly. Always have a backup. That's my excuse anyway.
Exactly. I mean, how many compressors do you need? And I know lots of people who are educating on YouTube will advocate, obviously, don't have thousands of plugins, don't waste lots of money, but we just can't help ourselves. I mean, boys will buy toys, and that's just the way that I am personally.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people are. And the amount of free plugins, you can buy lots of plugins that are really cheap. I've unfortunately fallen into the trap of buying a plugin and thought, oh, that'd be useful. It's only €20. And it's probably not even installed on my computer anymore. I don't even use it. But I think we're all guilty. But certain plugins actually do offer value for money. And the one that you've just described, the price entry point, seeing how useful and how many functions it has, I think it's a very, very, very good find. And it's definitely worth considering.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Right, the next one up from you. I'm really excited by this one because I think this one looks really, really good. So what's your next news item there, Tony?
Well, it's not a news item. Well, it is a news item, but it's not a news news item. I stumbled across this because, as an independent artist, I'm always looking for ways, obviously, to interact with Facebook and interact with Twitter, and obviously try and get my music out there on a platform where I can engage with people. I can attract people to the site, get them to interact by making comments and talk about the music, and generally just obviously try and make the whole world aware of what I'm trying to do as an independent artist and my band. That's Formato Effect, another plug for the band, of course. And one particular option I looked at, because I've used Bandzoogle, which I think many people use to put together a really basic website. It has a what you see is what you get kind of interface. So you don't have to worry about HTML code or have experience in program web pages, but it very quickly, using modules, helps you put together a really professional looking website. These kind of sites do pretty much the same thing. And I really thought about switching to Reverbnation. I know a lot of people use Reverbnation, and I just found out that it's been relaunched by BandLab. I'll try and get my teeth back in. BandLab Technology. So I think BandLab a couple of years ago, or Cakewalk, or I think they're called BandLab Technologies, they acquired the site. And they haven't really done too much with it. But now, actually, recently, I think last month, they completely rebranded it and they completely relaunched it. So now you have actually a brand new site. But what I like about Reverbnation is I like the way that it integrates with social media, the way, that you can actually post something on Reverbnation and you can link Facebook and you can link Twitter. And then that post automatically appears on those social media platforms, which I think is useful and is time saving. Previously in the past, I've gone onto my Twitter account. I've actually put something on my Twitter account, and then I've gone to Instagram, and then I've gone to Facebook. And it's just all time consuming when you just want to get your message out there. You just want to say, hey, I've got a new single, or I've got a new video uploaded to YouTube. So I think it integrates very well with social media platforms. I haven't actually checked it out for a couple of weeks, so I'm not 100% certain which platforms. And the price entry point is also good. For the free version, you get full, I think, social media integration. You can use all the other features of Reverbnation. You can upload your files, but with the free version, you get to own the site forever. But there are limitations on the size and quality of audio that you can actually upload. I think actually it was even 192 kilohertz, MP3 files, which obviously isn't great audio quality. I wouldn't recommend uploading anything that's 192 kilohertz, whatever it is. The audio quality is not that great. I think minimum want 320 MP3, and I think you're fine with that. You'll get a very good audio quality upload. There are limitations. I don't think you can then actually choose your own domain name, for example. There are all kinds of things that you don't get. But if you want to actually step up and get all these things, you want to upload large WAV files, for example, in CD audio quality, 16-bit, for example, you can do. And then, of course, I think you'll actually be able to choose your own domain name, or you can actually import an existing domain. I think they take care of that for you. So in other words, if you have a Bandzoogle site, or you have another website with your, your bandsname.com, they will actually then sort of take over that, and they will import that and then create a domain presence for you, which is quite nice. It looks very professional to have your own domain name. And there are lots of other features that are available. The premium, the premium level, which gives you access to absolutely everything, including a website builder, which is something that I just mentioned the Bandzoogle offer. I think it's only €18 a month, and it's quite competitive. So, and there are a couple of other options and add-ons that I'm not 100% certain. We'll leave the links actually in the description. I'm sure, Smudge, people can check it out for themselves. Yep. But I think what's new is that you can distribute your music via Reverbnation. So you have the DistroKid and the CD Baby and the TuneCore function. So I think this might be included actually in one of the levels, and you can actually then distribute your music. So it's now acting as a distributor as well to get your music up into Spotify and into iTunes and into Amazon Music and Tidal and all the other places. So it's now developing, I think, into a good one-stop shop for all musicians. So you have your social media content, you can upload your music, and you can sell directly from the site as well. And all this, I think, for a basic minimum fee of €11 a month, which I think is very, very competitive. And yeah, I certainly will be looking at that personally because I'm using Bandzoogle, and I'm really tempted to make the switch to look at BandLab's new relaunched Reverbnation site.
Yeah, I think it looks absolutely. I mean, to be fair, the thing for me is this is. I think it's fair to say this is a one-stop shop for anyone who wants to share music. And this is, it's something that you can do. You can integrate social media, so you can share on social media. You can, like Tony says, you can have your website. You can share to the streaming platforms. It is basically a one-stop shop, and you can even get into the nitty-gritty of things like um, sponsored artists, crowd reviews, promotions, and things like that. They do all of these things inside of the Reverbnation platform, the ecosystem, so to speak. I just think it looks really, really good. And for me, if I look at this, right, as a website and domain owner, if I won't go into details of what my website provider charges, but it's let's say it's comparable with what they're charging for their premium plan, and you get all of the other integrations there that are specific for music creators. It's for me, it just seems like such a good value, especially if you look into the pricing. And if I look at this, and this is if I'm reading this correctly, right? If I go into where I was just looking here, there is actually a features chart, and you can compare against other plans. And the interesting thing here, I think this was the thing, digital distribution. Digital distribution, if you pay for the premium membership, which is £15 a month, which we say it's €18 it was coming through.
Yeah.
So you get 2 free distribution packages each year. So just put that into context. If you pay for something like DistroKid, so DistroKid charges, I think it's around about £19 a year, isn't it? I think DistroKid is.
I have no idea.
You can have some that pay per month, charge per month. Others will charge, say, £45, £50. So if you kind of factor that in, how much was it for TuneCore for do one album release? If you don't,
I think it was something in the lines of about 24 euros. I don't know how that translates into pounds. I've done a couple of releases recently for colleagues from my own band and for John Bicknell's band. Actually, the band Drums and Wires UK was distributed through TuneCore, and I managed that for him. And I think we actually. The trick is that you pay a monthly fee. I think it's like 24 euros. But if you add an additional, and I've got the premium version for TuneCore, and if you actually add an additional artist, they charge you another £12 for an additional artist. So it's fine as long as you're releasing under one band name, if you like. But then if you want to add an additional artist under the other same account, they charge you even more money, which is quite shocking.
Yeah. So if you think about that from that perspective, think of how much it's going to cost you to. You're going to obviously have to pay for a domain every single year. You're going to have to pay for website fees every year. You're then going to have your release fees every year. If you add all that up and think about, something like Reverbnation for one small monthly price of £15, it just seems to me like such a no-brainer for someone who's going to be releasing music regularly, that wants to get engagement with their artists, with their fans and their fan base, and you can do so much more with it. I just think it just seems like such a compelling offer for someone who really wants to share their music with others, when you consider all the other ancillary costs that you're getting inside of this for one low monthly price. I just think it's a really good option. So do you think you might be going ahead with this, Tone? Do you think you might be having a look at this a little bit deeper for your own music?
Yeah, I think I definitely will, because there's two aspects to this. One, as I said, the time to manage all these individual social media sites obviously just takes away from time where I could be creating music. So that's the thing. I just want to get on and create music, and we all obviously have to spend a little bit of time doing what we call marketing, promoting yourselves as musicians online. I mean, there's no getting around it. But I find that sometimes I'm spending way too much time. The balance isn't right. I want to spend more time creating music. So the one-stop shop aspect is very attractive. So we'll be trying it. The second part, of course, is that you did quite mentioned the benefits about website with free domain and digital distribution. That's all good, but it's the fan interaction. You can set up a musician profile, which is useful if you actually want to manage more than one project, because you could be working on a project under a different band name, and then you could be working on another project with another band name. But on Reverbnation, you can have an artist profile and you can link to these individual projects. But also you're getting a lot of fan and social interaction depending on where you live. I mean, for example, you'll get emails saying, hey, there are these musicians who live in your area. Do you want to try and hook up and collab with these people, which you may or may not want to do? But I think that's useful. And also, based on your location, they'll actually run some kind of chart system. So you'll have like the top 20 songs in your region this week. Might be one of yours. But there is another way, as you said, which is also important, is to get reviews of your music, or at least try and get feedback from like-minded people. And it's the social interaction, I think, because we all work in our studios on our own, especially as solo musicians, or we collaborate online, as I do quite a lot. And there is the temptation to sort of do this on your own and be rather cut off. And the interaction is an important part. So I will be trying it out for those two reasons that I just mentioned.
Fantastic. Great stuff. So that is Reverbnation, and it's reverbnation.com, and we'll leave full links in the description down below. Next one up from me. I'm really getting into my, like we said, we're doing these EPs, so I'm getting really back into my guitar playing. And
excellent.
For me, I want to showcase this particular company. So this is Audio Assault, and Audio Assault have just released a new plugin which is called the Amp Locker, and it's currently in beta. So let's get this out there, get this one out here quite quickly. This is a company that predominantly relies on customer feedback. So what they will do is they'll release a plugin, they'll do it in beta, and they are always engaging with their customers on their Facebook group. And, you know, I just love what this company is doing. It's such a small company. They're based out in Mexico, but they're really, really engaging with their customers. They're taking the feedback on board. Updates are literally, you know, these are coming through every couple of days. So this amp locker was released, I believe it was like Friday or Saturday last week. And then I've already had the first update through following the beta testing feedback, which is just amazing. They really are on top of this in terms of their feedback. But the amp locker is effectively a hub which they're going to be using for their amp sims moving forward. So the amp blocker is free, and it comes with one amp which is called the Prestige, and this is more like it's kind of like a Marshall type vibe, maybe a bit more of a hot rodded Marshall type thing, and then you can add different modules into it. So as far as I'm aware at the moment, they've got a PV5650 emulation, and they've got one called the Califier, which is it's a rectifier emulation. And you can go into these plugins. They've got stomp boxes you can add in before the amp. You can go in and change the impulse responses. They've even got some post-processing you can do. So if you want to add some dynamics processing after the actual amplifier chain itself, you can do all that. And I just think this is a really, really good option. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, it's just another amp sim. And yeah, I can see that. But put this into context. The new amp locker is free, and it comes with one amp. The Califier at the moment is $7. The 5650 Plus is $7. So you could effectively get the amp locker with all the new bells and whistles and the two of the additional amplifiers, and it comes in at a total of $14, which is about 12 quid. And I just think it's just great value, and they're always trying to make these plugins better. So I wanted to kind of give this company a shout out. It's Audio Assault, and they do loads of different plugins on here. So you've got some you've got some pedal stuff. You've got one of their plugins called the AA551 channel strip, which is like an SSL style channel strip, and then you've got obviously quite a few amp sims. They are predominantly hard rock and metal focused. They do have a bass simulator available. That's on offer at the moment for $19.99. And they also do an SSL style EQ called the IQ505. One of my favourites was one called the Shibalba, which is How can I explain the Shibalba? If you're looking for a good classic hard rock tone, but don't want it to be overly metal, Shibalba was the one. But they do one based off the, I think that's what the RVXX model they call it, is based off something like the Rev generator, and you've got you've got all sorts of things on here. So Audio Assault, and the one in particular, the Focus one that's just been released this week, is called the Amp Locker, and it's currently for free, and it comes with their Prestige Amp Sim. So I just think that's really good. I tested it out last night. I was doing some recording last night, and it's coming up with some really interesting tones. I like this whole approach of not having overly complicated GUIs, having something that you can get in there, change things quickly, and I just thought it was really good option. So that was the Audio Assault amp locker. What's your thoughts, Tony? I know you like the old amp sims. Have you? What's your kind of go-to at the moment?
I'm using Amplitude quite a lot. I think that's my main one, mainly because due to group buys, I've invested a lot of money and time into buying equipment for my K multimedia. That is my. I probably got all of the amp simulation, so I kind of go to it because I'm comfortable in using it. I sometimes use Guitar Rig from Native Instruments. I've only got the older version, Guitar Rig 5. I know there's a new version, Guitar Rig 6. And sometimes I use their amp simulations. They have a couple of collections and feature amps. For example, I think with Native Instruments, there's a collection called Van Halen. If only I could play as well as Van Halen. God rest his soul. What a talent that man was. But I tend to gravitate towards, as I said, the Amplitude. I've only got version 5. I don't think there's a newer version. Maybe there's an Amplitude. No, I'm not certain. But anyway, that's my go-to. The Orange collection is really good in Amplitude. And I've got the Fender collection. I think there are 2 Fender collections. So that's basically my go-to. I wanted to ask a question about this new amp sim that you found, Smudge. Does it include sort of microphones and cabinets also as part of the makeup, a bit like you'll find on a typical amp sim, where you can swap out different types of cabinets and microphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can vouch for this. Yes, it does. It doesn't really show you too much on their website, but if you for anyone who goes onto the website, I'll put some screen captures on the screen as part of this video recording for you, and you can go in and you can fine tune. I think there's 4 as part of the whole makeup. You can choose between your pedals, your amp, the cabinets, and the post processing, and I think there's 4 slots for pedals preamp. Then you've got the amplifier, and then you've got the cabinet settings. I believe it's even stereo. So I think you can do your do the typical 2 cabinet setup and mix between the 2 with different impulse responses, different microphone choices, and all that. And then the last slot is also for your post processing. So if you want things like compression, you can add. I think they're like 500 series emulations and things like that. So you've got all of that built into the plugin as well. You've also got a built-in gate, which is very handy, built-in tuner, and then you can go through, and you've even got high quality options, which was quite interesting because you now have high quality options, i.e. oversampling for the boost pedal as well as the amplifier, which I hadn't seen before. So normally a plugin will come with some form of oversampling option, but to have a separate oversampling option for your pedal as well as your amplifier, I thought that was a really interesting option. So yeah, you've got all those bells and whistles. You can go into the nitty gritty and change all the impulse responses, microphones, and move things around. So that is definitely in there.
Yeah, I was very interested in when you were talking about channel strips and other effects processing actually as part of the chain, because one thing that I find, and I try and do, although I'm not always successful, is commit to a sound while recording. Not just put a load of plugins after the fact. So, in my DAW session, having these guitar sim plugins actually on my tracks, on my channels. I tend to try and actually get some of the basic compression and EQ moves and even effects if I'm going for a particular sound actually while I'm recording. So they're kind of baked in. So I'm always attracted by sims that give you the opportunity to affect the sound before you record it. So this particular product that, as you say, has a SSL similar type channel strip is very attractive, because what I've done in the past when recording is on the input channel, I've actually put an SSL channel strip actually on the input channel, and then I've just very gently tried to massage the tonal shape, if you like, and then commit that to the recording so it's baked in. So then I'm not spending additional time when I'm doing the production than worrying about the guitar tone. I've recorded it and I've actually got it in the can, so to speak, and I've already made my decision and I can move on. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. And what I'll do is I'll go through, and like I normally do in post, you'll normally see a load of product descriptions and images, and I'll go through and I'll do some screenshots, etc., of all the additional bits that you will find in that plugin as well. So yeah, that was really good, and that was the Amp Blocker by Audio Assault. This
Brilliant.
one, Tony, this is a name from the past. What have you got for your next news item?
It's a blast from the past, and I kind of bumped into this one because it was also mentioned on the same news item that mentioned the rebranding of Reverbnation. And BandLab and Cakewalk, of course, is a well-known name. I personally haven't used BandLab, and I haven't used Cakewalk, but I'm aware of it, and I know that for years and years and years, for Windows users, I think, because the software was only available on a Windows platform. That's probably why another reason why I haven't bumped into it, so to speak. Is well loved, and it's used by many because it's been completely free. And for a free DAW, it has a very, very good feature set in terms of instruments available, in terms of plugins, etc., etc. So I think it's not really new news, but certainly it's relatively new news. Is that they will Cakewalk will be actually introducing 2 new products, which is one called Next. And they're having another product called Sonar, and they'll be released very, very soon. And I think these will be paid versions. Now, nobody knows how much, of course, they're going to cost. But from what I've seen looking at the website and looking at some online tutorials, is that the next version is probably going to be some kind of GarageBand entry-level version, which will get you into the world of audio recording, but won't offer you a fully fledged, professional, kitted out DAW in terms of instrumentation and probably effects. So they claim on their website that it's a user-centric music creation tool to enhance and simplify modern desktop workflows. I don't know what that exactly means, but I think I've just said what I think it means. There is a beta version now available on Mac and on Windows. So Cakewalk will be coming to Mac, I think, for the first time. Anyway, you can tell me in a second whether that's true or not. So I think you can already sign up for that. I think you have to commit an email address, and I haven't done it myself, but you'll get a download link. And then the other premium product, which I think will be probably given a name like Professional, or I don't know, it'll probably be the premium paid product, is called Sonar. And as you told me yesterday, Sonar is a blast from the past, but you can tell everybody more about that because I really don't know. So this is going to be a classic DAW that's going to have full instrumentation suite. It's going to have studio level effects, and it's going to be a professional level tool. I know this is not really brand new news, but I always like looking at other options and other DAWs, especially at price entry point, but also in terms of stock plugins, because I do actually use stock plugins. And I know there's this whole argument about, should I use paid? Should I use stock? And the stock are as good as the paid. But I think any DAW that's offering for a reasonable price, a good set of stock plugins, is something that I personally would endorse. And I know that I'm using quite a few stock plugins in my productions in Studio One. And they're very good. Most of them are very, very good. And I use them all the time. So I'd be very interesting to see how this actually develops, because I certainly think that basically I would probably download the both versions as a trial, and just to see what Cakewalk has to offer. I'm kind of just interested, because never having access, being a Mac user predominantly, to Cakewalk products before, I'm just kind of curious. And the other thing, the other day, that actually I downloaded the BandLab. BandLab, by the way, I understand it's going to stay completely free, but probably just will not have any updates and support. I'm not completely 100% certain on that, and I haven't read any documentation on that. But if you've downloaded and used BandLab in the past and use it on Windows, you're going to be able to use it forever, and it will remain free. But I can't see how Cakewalk or BandLab will actually develop this anymore, since they have 2 new products, which will obviously then be, you'll have to pay for them, basically. So I'd be curious to download it, because I can, and just basically see what the Sonar version can offer. I'll probably download the next version as well, probably sign up for the beta, and just see basically what that has to offer.
Yeah.
So it's reasonably exciting. I think I'm going to give this a go. But you probably know more about I know that you work predominantly on a Windows platform. You probably have more to say about Sonar.
Yeah, so it's one of those. It's an interesting for anyone who doesn't know the backstory. Cakewalk has been around for donkey's years. It's one of the ones that's been. I don't know if it was the 80s or 90s it came out, but it was one of the DAWs that was around way back when. And it was like all different DAWs. They had their different what do you call them, versions of the software, and Sonar was probably their premium version. And as my understanding is, it would, as time went on, it ended up passing hands through different owners, where it eventually fell into the Gibson group, and then Gibson just basically stopped supporting the products and discontinued the products. So you had all these Cakewalk users that were basically left with nothing. And that's when BandLab came in, and BandLab basically took on the reins and took over Cakewalk when it became Cakewalk by BandLab, and they made that's when they made the software completely free. So, for anyone who has been paid all of their money into Sonar and all the different versions of Cakewalk under its different guises, they still had the ability to use Cakewalk by BandLab. And it's now just the next iterations. Like Tony said, there's going to be two versions, Next and Sonar. And Cakewalk by BandLab will be discontinued. So they're going to continue providing community support and maintenance for Cakewalk by BandLab until both Cakewalk Next and Sonar become publicly available. At some point after the release of Next and Sonar, Cakewalk by BandLab will no longer be supported. Existing Cakewalk by BandLab users will be able to continue using the software after the release of Cakewalk Sonar. In the meantime, Cakewalk by BandLab continues to be available. So they're effectively they will stop supporting it after a while. I'm sure I'd seen some information somewhere around kind of price points, but I could be making that up. I'm pretty sure I had been, but I can't find the information to hand right now. But yeah, so it's really interesting, and it's good to see that they are catering for different audiences as well, because not everyone needs the fully fledged DAWs. So to have something that's called Cakewalk Next and in Sonar, if you want the fully fledged option, I think that's great. And the Cakewalk by BandLab, like Tony says, you can only get that on Windows. You can't get that on Mac. So to see that they're actually offering the beta version for Next at the moment for Mac access is absolutely amazing. Because I think it's just, it's it's opening the software up to a whole completely new audience who haven't been able to use it before. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens here. I've dabbled with Cakewalk over the years, but never really kind of put too much time and effort into it. But I'm really intrigued to see what they do and what they can offer. The fact that they've kind of what's the phrase? Is it it's a phoenix rising from the ashes, and it's kind of this popular name amongst the audio community that's now kind of rising again. It's in a new guise. It's not Cakewalk by BandLab. It's now going to be Cakewalk Next and Cakewalk Sonar, kind of rising from the ashes, so to speak. I think it's really, really interesting. I know it's got a bit of a cult following, so it'd be interesting to see where they go with it. But I think it's really pleasing to see, because it's you don't want to see any software company fail, especially one that's been around for such a long time, and to now see it kind of really coming back to the forefront again, I think it's really, really good to see. So yeah, I'd be interested to see your thoughts on it when you go ahead and look at the beta, because I think it's it's certainly one I'd like to maybe have a look at some point down the line. So I'll be really interested to see what your thoughts are, Tony, when you go through that process. And maybe you can have a look and maybe do an overview on a video on the PSA channel at some point in the future.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I might do that, actually. I'm just creating lots and lots of work for myself, which is fine. Bring it on. I don't mind. No, two things I wanted to say. We'll be interested. As you say, there is actually a loyal Cakewalk BandLab community out there. It would be interesting to see whether they follow BandLab on the journey, so to speak. How many will actually make the transition and now will be willing to pay for either of the new software products? Brand loyalty is something that's very important. It's very hard to break away from what you know. I know that with personal experience recently. And it'll be interesting to see how many people actually like the new features that will be offered, and interesting to see if the software changes. I can't make any comparison because I've never used it, but I think it's always a good idea to look at other doors. We had a conversation on a previous episode, which is the right door or the best door for you. We don't want to go over that ground again, but I think it would be interesting to look and see basically what it has to offer, and just use the door. Of course, we had this conversation. The door that obviously that you like the best, but I'm not closed-minded and a complete fanboy of one particular door. So I will be downloading it and have a look. But the adoption rate would be interesting to see. But whether, as I said, whether people are willing now who had this previously for nothing. Are willing to pay for it. The second point, of course, is that I've seen many people making quite a few videos online already, is that now that BandLab are going to charge money, the bar probably is being raised in terms of what to expect from the door. I think you can now be a little bit more critical about what's being offered in comparison of what you already have, for example, if you're using another door, opposed to the fact when it was free. When it was free, it was free. You couldn't really grumble because they weren't charging any money for it. So that'll be interesting as well. To see how this new door actually fares in the competitive market of digital audio workstations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, like on Tony's point there, I know from certainly from my knowledge, the Cakewalk by BandLab offering was it was a stripped back version of Sonar. So it had a lot of the features, but some of the things it was really lacking, for example, were virtual instruments. So I wonder if that's going to be a part of this new, this whole new offering. They're going to really kind of hone in on some of the actual virtual instruments and giving some more actually creative tools rather than just a more of a traditional DAW platform for editing, mixing, mastering, direct recording using third-party stuff. So I think that's really where where I would see them adding more features in terms of the virtual instruments. But like you say, it'd be really interesting to see what they do offer. And yeah, I'm quite looking forward to your videos now, Tony. Not want to put you under pressure or anything, but I'm looking forward to those.
No problem whatsoever. I'll just make a quick note. Make another video. Put it on my list of things to do. Probably have to speak to my wife and see whether I can create additional time. No, I'm joking. Yes, I think I probably will do. Probably download it and have a look and do a short video. Why not? I'm sure there'll be thousands of other people doing the same thing, but I will give my opinion for what it's worth.
Fantastic. Right, we're up to our last news story now, and this was I'm really excited by this one. And it's all relation to these. So I'm wearing my headphones here, which are the OLLO Audio S5X, and I've just done a review video which was released on the Mastering in the Box YouTube channel, and I'm going to post it on the Progressive Sound Audio channel as well. I just need to sort out some little bits regards to the video. So I love these headphones. The headphones are they're focused more on immersive audio, but they also have cross functionality because they work great with stereo audio too. So you kind of got the best of both worlds. You can work in things like Atmos as well as working on your stereo, traditional stereo music as well. But they've just released a new product, and this is really exciting. So this is the OLLO Audio. It is called the USC NX. Is it USC NX? Let me get this right. USC NX. So what is the USC NX? The USC NX is it's unit-specific calibration for the OLLO Audio S5X. So this is a collaboration they are doing with Waves Audio. And Waves Audio have the NX plugin, and the NX plugin is headphone calibration software. So you can have calibration for your particular type of headphones, and they also offer different, let's say, add-ons where you can replicate a different mixing or mastering room from one of your favorite studios. There's loads of them. You can do things like I think one of them was the Abbey Road and Ocean Way and Mixolay, which is Chris Lord Alge's studio, Germano, etc. If you want to go down that route too. So if you want to try and emulate the sound of a studio, you can do that. But if you just want a traditional headphone calibration. Then you've got the virtual mix room from NX, which you can go through and buy the calibration for your particular headphones. Now, what the difference with this is the unit specific calibration for OLLO Audio, and this is one thing I really wanted to highlight. When it comes to a typical, let's say, a headphone calibration software, obviously they're not unit specific. So, for example, if you choose any headphone from Sennheiser, Audio Technica, from Biodynamic, anyone, even OLLO Audio, right? So if you was to do a typical calibration, no headphones made the same. So they will all have their variances and their different tolerance levels for the calibration. So, for example, there's a figure, I don't know how true this is, but there is a figure being used of, say, 3 dBs for the tolerance level. So when it comes to the frequency response of your particular headphone, they will have the measurement, and then the calibration will match that to within plus or minus 3 dBs. So it's still quite a big tolerance, quite in theory, because if you've got, say, in one area it's plus 3 dB, but you go down to the next area it's minus 3 dB, then you've actually got almost a 6 dB swing depending on where those tolerances are. So because no one headphone is made the same, obviously you've got to factor in those tolerance levels. But this new collaboration with Waves is unit specific calibration, and what OLLO Audio are offering is a bespoke, custom for your headphone calibration, which reduces that tolerance level down to plus or minus 1 dB. So it's really fine tuning to try and get the most truest, flattest calibration possible. And they work in conjunction with Waves NX to offer this. So I think that's really, really good. Now, for those who haven't seen the OLLO Audio review and who don't know much about OLLO Audio, every single OLLO Audio headphone comes with its own personal frequency chart, so you can see the exact frequency response for your set of headphones, and you get that in some form of, I call it a certificate, but it's a paper format with your serial number. It's QC checked, and it's a specific frequency response measurement for your headphone. And what this is taking it to the next step, where the engineers at OLLO Audio will provide you with your own unit-specific calibration for Waves NX plugin. And, I just think this is a really, really good step. If you're looking for one of the most accurate responses from a headphone, then I think this is absolutely amazing. Just take this one a little bit further, though. It's not just... this is the interesting thing for me. And this is the thing why I'm so keen to look at this, is the Waves NX plugin. It's just a plugin, but you've got this thing here, and I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, Tony. Is they have this thing, I think this is called the virtual mix room, and it's called head tracking. And this is what I'm really, really interested to test. So you can do head tracking with Waves NX. So effectively, you could use either a webcam or Waves. They sell a device that clips onto the top of your headphones, and effectively you can go through and use your webcam or the head tracker, and you can calibrate the NX software to match where you are facing at any one moment in time. So the whole ethos around this is to trying to emulate where your head is. So if you're trying to emulate a studio room, and if you're facing this way, obviously you want the sound coming that way. But if you turn your head that way, you want to emulate the sound coming at you from the front and your head being at the side. So this is really, really interesting. I'm so intrigued by this. But this is where the Waves NX when X plugin really comes into its own with this head tracking, especially around Atmos and the immersive audio. So for me, I'm going full into this because I really want to test this out in a big way. So I wanted to highlight that not only this product, because this is, once again, it's the unit-specific calibration from OLLO Audio in conjunction with Waves NX. But I just think as technology moves forward, we are progressive in the way we want to be at progressive sound audio. I just think this just sounds like such a good, unique take on the whole, kind of immersive experience and head tracking and having a headphone that, that is catered for immersive audio. And for me, it's just really it's just mind blowing what they're trying to do. And I'm really excited by this. What do you think? What's your thoughts on this, Tony?
No, I completely agree with you. It does sound actually quite exciting. And to follow on from what you said, is I bought the NX Waves plugin, the CLA. I've got a lot of CLA plugins. Not that I'm a big fanboy of him, but I did buy it. I can't remember why I decided to buy it. I was looking for software that that could basically eliminate the room for me. We might talk about that in a bit, actually, but I don't want to go on to that particular discussion just yet. But I have it, and I use the head tracking, and it actually is quite effective. I mean, literally, it does work. So it opens as a separate application when you use the plugin. It does on a Mac anyway, so it's not like an integrated plugin that you just put it on a channel and it works. Is that when you actually activate the NX plugin, it opens up this head tracking, and it does actually put you in the studio. So when you're moving your head left to right, your ears left to right, it does actually very accurately simulate what you will probably hear if you were actually in the studio. And it's very, very accurate. And I didn't need to buy any additional equipment to enable the head tracking. I just used my standard sort of Barodynamic headphones. And obviously, I used the app to set the profile to match my headphones that I was using. And the head tracking worked fine. And it was a really immersive experience, I must say. And of course, you're using the different rooms that CLA provides. I mean, it has like a different type of, I think it's one room and there are different variations of it, listening through different speakers. But I think for any NX plugin or any room simulation plugin, I think the principle is going to be the same. So anyway, it did actually work very well. And I found it particularly useful because one thing I'm doing when I'm not using this plugin is when I'm doing a mix and I'm sitting right near the speakers and I just want to get some idea of how it sounds. I literally get up and walk around. I think most people have given this advice online, but I'll even walk out of the room or I'll walk to the back of the room and actually hear how the mix actually sounds when there's some distance between me and the speaker. So if you like, in my own environment, that's almost head tracking, isn't it? You're actually moving around and you're actually listening to the reflections and you're listening to the audio from a completely different perspective. And I think this is what I like about head tracking. And using this kind of immersive experience with headphones. It does enable you to give some idea, at least some idea of how your music would sound if it was in a real professional studio environment. And that gives you a lot of information and feedback about, how your low end's sounding, whether you can hear the bass, whether the kick drum is too prominent, etc. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. So this product that you mentioned, I've seen your video already. Excellent video, by the way, Smudge.
Thank you.
Love to see it on the PSA website too, but I'm sure you'll get that sorted out. The fact that a headphone manufacturer is actually factoring in and considering this type of technology, I think is quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And following my review video, I really love the work that OLLO Audio are doing. It's as an endorser of their products. I'm going to go into this in a big way because I just think this is exciting for so many people. It's not. I think one of the challenges is everyone's looking for something that's going to be A, it's affordable, and B, that's going to grow with them over time. And people don't want to be in a situation where they're keeping having to buy a new bit of gear. If you can get something, a system that works for you and a system that's going to grow with you over time, then I think that's great. So, yeah, I'm going to follow this one really, really closely. I'll be doing, full reviews of how it works and things like that, and my full thoughts of the USC and the NX. So really, really looking forward to that. But
excellent.
Well, I say but, there's no but. And with that, this ties us really, really well onto this spotlight topic. And the spotlight topic for this week is, can you use headphones exclusively for music production? And we're going to come at this from different ways, with different thoughts, different processes, different tips. And we're going to look at things like the types of headphones, the use, the applications, and then we'll look at some of the software, the output and the output interfaces, and how you can actually have your connectivity with all your computers. So, can you use headphones exclusively for music production? Tony, what's your thoughts?
My thought is yes. The answer is basically yes. And in my case, absolutely essential because I don't have a treated room and I'm not actually listening to music in the studio. So generally, I think it's really essential that I have a good set of headphones. I don't have a premium set of headphones, but I have a really good mid-range budget set of headphones, and they're open back. And I probably, to finalize my mix and just make sure that they sound how I want them to sound, that they translate, I will really rely more on headphones than I do studio speakers. I'm sure that's the case for a lot of musicians working in their home studios that don't work in a treated environment. So absolutely, yes. I think it's I rely on headphones. So typically what I'll do is that when I'm doing production work and I'm just trying to put ideas together, I will use my studio speakers. And I've got two sets of studio speakers, one which is reasonably expensive and the other one which are sort of budget speakers. So I try to see how it's translating already when I'm doing production work. But then when I get down to the mix, I probably will then just rely a little bit on the speakers still. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty, I'm probably relying 100% on my sound referencing software. And also on my headphones. So I think it's pretty much essential for my particular circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, I would echo all of your comments there. To be fair, you can, certainly in my opinion, I think you can absolutely work exclusively on headphones for music production. Yeah, there's different types of headphones, and some have different applications, and some are more. Let's say they're more geared towards certain use cases than others, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't use headphones exclusively for any form of music production. From a personal perspective, I prefer to record. Let's caveat this. I prefer to record using speakers, except for when it comes to vocals, because obviously you don't want any bleed from the speakers coming into your microphone. But for all of my engineering tasks now, I'm exclusively in headphones. So it's kind of like Tony says, the challenge with any kind of monitoring setup is ensuring you've got an accurate setup. And if you're in an environment where it's not treated, and you don't know what's being masked, the reverberation might be excessive. You don't know where the frequency imbalance is. Headphones are going to be your best friend, because it kind of takes all that out of the equation. We've mentioned this before. It might be something I've mentioned before on the Mastering in the Box channel, but there is no such thing as a truly flat headphone. So every headphone will have its own frequency response, but then you can fine tune that with calibration software to try to achieve a more flat overall listening experience. So yeah, there's absolutely no reason certainly in my opinion, why you can't use headphones exclusively for music production. There are so many mix engineers, mastering engineers, professional level engineers who are working exclusively in headphones now, because the quality is so high with lots of different headphones. And when you've got innovation with someone like OLLO Audio, who I am turning into a fanboy. I can't help it. You'll see me wearing an OLLO Audio T-shirt next time round, and maybe an OLLO Audio cap. But when you got such great products out there, that it just it almost makes it a bit of a no-brainer. So I want to come at this from a slightly different angle, and we'll cover some of the types of headphones. But I suppose let's quickly discuss some of the benefits, maybe some of the downsides to working in headphones, and some of the ways you can kind of counteract some of those downsides. So obviously we've discussed about the environment and almost taking the environment out of the equation. That's a massive benefit for using headphones. Have you got any other thoughts on some of the other benefits around the use of headphones over maybe a traditional monitoring setup? I mean, obviously taking the room out of the equation is probably the big one.
Yeah, it's the big one, of course. I mean, listening on studio monitors is probably I would use for production, for inspiration, as you say, for recording, but for precision, then I'm using headphones. The other advantage of actually using headphones is that apart from taking out the room, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, it's essential, of course. I wanted to say you get a comfortable pair of headphones, because if you're going to be doing a lot of mixing and a lot of recording, you don't want to have your ears starting to get tired and fatigued because you have a set of headphones that basically don't sit on your head particularly well. And also, it's important, I think, whether they have this insulation, the type of insulation, whether it's leather, whether it's plastic, whether it's foam, I think is also important, because if you're committed then to using the headphones for predominantly all your mixing work, and then you're finalizing mastering or your mix, they need to be comfortable because you'll be wearing them for obviously a considerable amount of time. The other advantage is that it does actually almost place you in a professional environment, doesn't it? You can use these sound referencing plugins. We've already mentioned NX earlier on. You can put yourself, in theory, with headphones in a studio costing hundreds of thousands of millions or thousands of pounds. You can put yourself in Chris Lord LG studio. Probably not exactly the same as actually being there, but you'll be in the ballpark. And of course, the other advantage is the flat response. I'm using, I think it's by SonarWorks, the Sound Reference ID software. Yeah. Now, I don't use the software to measure my room with the microphone to obviously make sure I'm getting a flat response. There is actually a separate component just exclusively for headphones. So when you buy the software, I've just bought the headphones module because I haven't treated my room and I'm not going to be measuring it to get the perfect response, the flat response I'm looking for. But the software does a very, very good job of actually producing a flat response in your headphones. And they have every single headphone manufacturer as part of their portfolio. So that is also the other advantage then, what I'm trying to think on the fly, is that through software development, and as you say, OLLO are developing headphones in this direction with NX and with Sound Reference ID from SonarWorks, is that it does actually enable to take you out of your room and the advantage to place you in maybe a professional environment which you really don't have access to, which is going to obviously improve your skills as a mix and mastering engineer, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose the other thing as well, I mean, just thinking about some of the benefits, obviously, when it comes to sound creation, you don't want to be annoying everyone, do you, with all your noise? And, having a good, comfortable set of headphones that you can work on for decent periods and not annoy everyone, that's obviously a benefit. And then obviously you want to try and minimise the noise coming into your environment too. And actually headphones, you can use that as almost a benefit. If you work in a noisy environment, then sometimes actually using the headphones can not necessarily isolate, but it can reduce that other noise as well. So I think that, there's lots of those ancillary uses for headphones that I think it just makes it certainly an overall more pleasing experience. So on that note, let's talk about some of the downsides, because there are some downsides to using headphones. And I think probably the most common one for me is obviously the whole issue of crossfeed and crosstalk. So, try and put this into kind of a simplest, into simple layman terms. Is one of the things that the experiences you get from using speakers is if you have a left speaker and a right speaker in a traditional stereo format, and obviously that sound comes at you from different angles, but because it comes at you from different angles, you don't just hear the information from the left speaker into your left ear and the right speaker into your right ear. You obviously get information from both speakers into both ears. And you obviously don't get that with headphones. So you're getting all the information from your left can in your left ear and the right can in the right ear. So you do lose that crosstalk. And this is something that's obviously we can use software to try and replicate. So the one that I use is probably one of the most popular ones is Can Opener by Goodhertz, and it's fantastic. And it just tries to emulate the crosstalk between or crossfeed between the speakers in a headphone format. So that's certainly probably one of the big ones when it comes to use of headphones. Is you're not going to have that stereo feel from using speakers, because obviously you've only got information coming in one ear and direct in the other ear. You're not going to have information coming from both speakers into both ears, but you can use software tools to kind of replicate that. So there are tools out there for that. What else, Tony? What other downsides have we got for using the headphones?
Well, the other side, I've actually found that sometimes you tend to concentrate maybe a little bit too much on the stereo field. I mean, obviously, because literally you have the music going to your left and right ear.
Yeah.
Of course, most people today, I think, listen to music, obviously not on stereo. Well, they have earbuds or whatever. But if you wanted to maybe have some kind of mono compatibility, whether you're listening from a Bluetooth speaker or you're listening in your car, or you're thinking about how it might get streamed on a radio, although most radios now stream in stereo. But you get what I'm trying to say. I mean, the problem is that maybe I find myself sometimes getting too locked into stereo. So you think, oh, this is not wide enough. So you get out your stereo widening plug in, and then you try and widen the stereo field, and before you know where you are, you've got phase problems because obviously you've stretched out the stereo field way too much for one particular instrument. So I see that as a slight disadvantage, because I grew up listening to music sort of almost like it would come out of a speaker, and it does hit your left and right ear, and then you probably can discern which is coming out left and right, but it's not such an enhanced experience. If you have headphones permanently on your head, then you can hear exactly what's coming out the left and right. So I don't know whether this is a problem generally, but I found sometimes I get too worried about the stereo spread. Am I panning instruments too far left, too far right? Forgetting that basically is that when we actually listen to this without headphones, it kind of comes as the music comes to us in a slightly different direction. There probably is a technical explanation for that. I have no idea what it is, but I think that could be a little bit of a disadvantage, getting maybe too strung up on the on the stereo field. The other thing I wanted to actually say was actually an advantage. I know we're leaping back to an advantage, but I find that also when you're listening to music on headphones and you value your hearing, is you tend to actually listen to things at slightly lower volume. And I think that's good, because if you're actually listening to music through speakers, the temptation is to crank it up. And as we know, loud sounds good, right? If we just play something loud, that sounds fantastic. And it's not particularly good, obviously, because it's been well mixed, or you have a balance across the frequency ranges. It just sounds good because it's loud. And that's just human nature. And that's how people hear stuff. So another advantage, sorry to go back, is the fact that I personally tend to listen to music at slightly lower volumes to protect my hearing. But I think that's a good thing for mixing and mastering.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, and I would echo that. It's no wonder that so many people use headphones for critical listening, because you can really kind of, you don't have to have it so loud. You can really focus your attention on certain on certain sounds. So yeah, I think that's a really good spot. And just going back to the previous comment around the stereo widening, I think it's a bit like any monitoring setup though, isn't it? I think you've got to get really used to how your monitoring setup sounds, and reference against loads of music, so you know what your favourite music sounds or your reference tracks sound, and you get to know them really, really well. I mean, it's not just like listening to them a couple of times, listen to them loads and loads and loads, and know how every single detail, how they sound in your monitoring setup. And then once you know that, it will give you a better perspective on things like how the stereo whip should sound. And I think that's just going to be the real key takeaway, regardless whether you use speakers or headphones. Get to know your monitoring setup immensely well, because that will help you so much, moving down the line. So
yeah, that's definitely good. I do reference actually using headphones when I'm actually using other music for references. I would never do that on a speaker. I always use reference. I reference other tracks using headphones, just purely for accuracy. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I suppose one of the logical downsides to headphones is obviously it's going to be long use and comfort. You shouldn't listen to music on speakers for long periods either, to be fair, because you will still, whether you use headphones or not, you will have ear fatigue. If you're sat there in front of your speakers for hours upon hours, you will get ear fatigue, regardless of whether you're using headphones or not, because speakers will just fatigue your ears. Very similarly to headphones. Headphones, they probably do have a tendency to fatigue your ears more because it's very much more closed. But, I suppose that's one of the things is you must find a pair of headphones that are comfortable. Because if you want to spend long periods of time, working on your music using headphones, there's nothing worse, and I can tell you from experience, wearing an uncomfortable headphone, whether it's the top of the head or whether it's the ears, it can just be sometimes soul destroying when you're sat there and you're just like, I can't do this anymore because my ears are in so much pain that you have to stop. So comfort is going to have to be key. So I think that's one of the things, probably almost my top recommendation for anyone. Make sure you test headphones out and find some that are comfortable for you, because it is, it can be so painful when you find some that don't fit you properly, especially when you've got like me, they've got ears the size of trophy handles. You know, it's
well, we can't see them at the moment because you've got your headphones on.
exactly,
So perhaps another advantage, wearing headphones can hide oversized, large
oversized
ears.
lug holes. Yeah, they're nicely tucked up in bed inside of my cans at the moment. So yeah.
And another slight disadvantage, I would think, is that if you want to invest money, of course, in good studio headphones, which you probably would want to, considering in mind what we've just talked about, is that they can get quite pricey.
Yeah.
And also things wear out, like your cable might break, or eventually, if you wear them so often, these fluffy ear guards or ear pads will wear out. And I think some of the more certainly pricier headphone options, you can actually swap out these parts. You can buy new ear muffs, whatever they're called, or you can buy a new cable. But I don't know. They're not exactly cheap. I owned a pair of AKG headphones, and I had to swap out the cable a couple of times, and also these ear things. And I'm thinking, well, but if I've done this 3 or 4 times, I might as well bought just a new set of headphones. I think that could be a consideration as well. There is so much money to spend on buying studio gear, plugins, laptops, PCs, microphones, equipment to do what we're doing to make YouTube videos. That's another expense to, maybe it's not a massive concern, but certainly when you're buying a set of headphones, so we tend to get used to a set of headphones and you want to keep the same set of headphones, then when certain parts of the headphone wear out, you might want to replace them. So it's like most things, yeah. I think nothing is actually designed to last forever. And I'm sure that there's a certain amount of redundancy built into some of these parts because manufacturers want you to obviously spend money to replace them. They've taken your money on the initial outlay and they want to obviously to try and keep you loyal to the brand. And then they'll offer all these little parts, obviously, that you can replace, obviously, to keep you using that particular headphone, that particular brand. So that could be a minor disadvantage. But as I was desperately looking for things that I could pick fault with, I thought, yeah, that's something that's annoyed me in the past. And maybe that could be something to consider when buying a set of headphones. I think those at the budget end of the spectrum probably don't offer things like interchangeable ear pads, and you'll find that the cable doesn't plug in. It's actually sort of like integral part of the headphone. The other disadvantage, of course, if you're sitting and you've got your headphone and then suddenly you go backwards because you love your music and then you put the wheels of your chair over the cable and then it rips it out of the headphone, then your headphone's damaged and you've got to buy a new set. So that could be another minor disadvantage, is that maybe some of the headphones at the lower end of the spectrum are more susceptible to breakage. And if they break, you have to buy a completely new set, which is, again, more financial outlay. So these are really small points. But as you asked me to think about disadvantages, I was really scratching my brain. I think I might come up with a couple.
Yeah. Well, I would just logically say, Tony, that's why you need to source a pair of headphones from a reputable brand like OLLO Audio.
Of course.
That offer a 5-year warranty on parts, for specific parts, so you don't have to worry about things like this, you see.
You've got to get that OLLO T-shirt.
I'm going to have to. But no, it's... now you make some good points. It's kind of like anything, though, isn't it? I mean, if you buy speakers now. I don't know. Let's say if you want to get into this, relatively seriously, and you want to, I don't want to go off tangent here, but even if you get monitor speakers, you could easily spend, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 40 grand. If you want to, certainly for mastering, you want to get mastering grade speakers, say goodbye to 40, 50, 60 grand's worth of money. Yeah. So if you look at it in that respect, then A to D, D to A converters and all things like that, then you got to think about your environment or your acoustic treatment. And I'll tell you what, that's an absolute faff. If you go and spend 500 quid, 600 quid, 700 quid, even a grand, 1,500 quid on a set of headphones, I'm not suggesting everyone rushes out and remortgages to go and do that. But I suppose when, if you think about, if the best set of headphones for you are 1,500 quid, you think of the outlay by the time you've factored in speakers, converters, treatment, the time it will take you to work out what treatment you need, you'll easily spend over that. So swings and roundabouts, I suppose.
There's another argument to be had, actually, Smudge, about this, because, I mean, if you're working in a studio, what's the point of me going out and spending a lorry load of money on studio quality speakers when I don't have a treated room and the environment?
Yeah.
Yes, the music would sound really good, but is that really a good place to spend my money? Probably better to actually say, no, I don't have a treated room. I'm not working in a studio. get a adequately good set of speakers, but then invest that money in a really good set of headphones if I'm not working in a treated environment. So that is another argument to be had, I think.
Yeah, I mean, right here you'll see right behind me here that these two panels here, those three panels, because technically it's a three panel section, and this one right here, the bass trapping in the corners. I can tell you now that they were over $1,000 just for those two pieces. So if you think about it like that, then it's it soon adds up for acoustic treatment. But it's one of those things. It's obviously if you prefer speakers, then it's you've got to go down that route.
I can honestly say, you can listen to our album by That's Formato Effect, which I actually recorded, mixed in this room. Apart from the parts that were sent to me, were recorded remotely, and I just really just mixed the entire album using the headphones that I have in this environment, in a room without any treatment. And I know you mastered it. And although it was the first album that I ever produced and I ever mixed, I'm quite proud of what we did. And I think it actually sounds acceptable, if not good, in places. You can be the judge of that. I'm sure other people will be. But it just shows you that what is possible. And I was very happy with the outcome.
Yeah, it was a great mix. It really was a great mix. It's like the EP, we're mastering the EP. We really didn't discuss about. I think we only discussed one area, wasn't it? When before even the mastering commenced, we only discussed around the bass, and it's kind of just creating that separation, wasn't it, between the bass and the guitars, and taking away, certain areas to allow more space. That's not, that was not. It's not an issue. It's not what am I trying to say? That's not, that wasn't caused as a result of anything to do with headphones. It was just something that could be done to make an overall more a cleaner sound, so to speak. It was a great mix. There was that was the only thing we really discussed before mastering, wasn't it? And even in mastering, it was still very. I'd say it's very light touch. We didn't do much in the mastering stage. It was kind of, obviously bringing the level up, a little bit of character EQ, some saturation. That's really about it. So what you achieved using the headphones for those mixes, I think, was superb. Overall.
And I thank you very much. It's very nice of you to say. So I appreciate that. The other thing I want to say, of course, is that personally, even if, for example, I'm in a home studio and like you have invested some serious money in sound and room treatment, my own personal view is that I would not trust myself that I've got an accurate relationship in the low end unless I was in a professional, I really mean a professional recording studio, listening through speakers. Even if I'm working at home and say, for example, my room had all the best treatment money could buy for a home studio, and I'd got my SonarWorks reference ID, I'd use the microphone to measure all the frequency responses, I think I still, for sanity and for peace of mind, would still be referencing that low end using speakers. Sorry.
Headphones.
Headphones.
Yeah, I know. So many people are the same. It's so many, people at all levels will say, well, we do that, even if they use speakers, always check the low end on headphones, because you can get so much more detail and clarity using the headphones, certainly for low end checking. So it's so commonplace now for people to do the same. So I totally agree. I'm just a bit conscious, of course, of time. So we're going to kind of just bring this to some kind of conclusion. Let's just quickly discuss the types of headphones, because there are different types of headphones. Predominantly there's two, aren't there? Open back and closed back. So closed back are pretty much what they say. They are closed, so they are isolated. And these are headphones that are very much used for recording, because you want that isolation of sound. So if you're in any environment where you're using a microphone to capture sound, you want to have a set of closed back headphones. So you are isolating the sound, so it's going into your ears, but it's not going to be bleeding into the microphone. So that is when a closed back headphone is going to be absolutely paramount. So things like vocal recording, if you're tracking live guitars, drums, anything acoustically that you're trying to capture using a microphone, you really want to try and use a closed back headphone for those type of sounds. But then when it comes to other sounds, so when you're talking about listening for pleasure or critical listening, mixing, mastering, you really want to try and get a closed, open back headphone. Why do you want to get an open back headphone? Because the design allows for sound to escape the actual cup itself, which is absolutely crucial for low-end frequencies. The problem with closed back is when you've got all of that low-end information coming from the actual can itself, you can actually have too much of a build-up for certain frequencies. Therefore, you start to lose the actual the actual frequency response, and it starts to become hyped. Usually, typically in the low end, because the low end can't escape from the actual can itself. So you typically have really like a low end build-up. So therefore, you then create almost kind of a big issue when it comes to critical listening, because you almost get the perception of more low end in your headphone. Whereas with that open back design, it allows sound to escape, which kind of allows that energy to come outside of the headphone, and it gives you a more true reflection of what the actual frequency response is of the headphones. So overall, critical listening, open back headphones, and if you want isolation, looking for closed back headphones. And then just quickly touch on software, won't we, Tony? Just quickly, briefly discuss this. There is software out there. We've mentioned a couple. So I mentioned the Good Hertz Can Open Up, and then we've mentioned some different types of calibration software. So Tony mentioned about these SonarWorks, and just to recap that in a few sentences, Tony, what is a headphone calibration software, and what can it be used for?
Well, it's a plugin that you just can put on any channel, but I predominantly use it on a listening bus or on the on a mix bus. Probably, yeah. You can put it on. You can put it on the mix bus. I think it will just basically reproduce a frequency range that matches the bias, if you like, or the frequency spectrum of your headphones. So the problem, of course, is that if you're just listening in a natural environment, you'll have peaks and troughs all the way from the frequency spectrum, right down from 20 hertz up to 20,000. So this will attempt using a profile that the software company will provide that will actually then flatten the frequency response to give you as a neutral response to the frequency of your music as possible. Now, some of them actually, I'm using SonarWorks Sound Reference ID. It's not 100% perfect, but that's essentially what it does. So then you can really trust what you're hearing. So that low end information, or maybe some of the information at the high end of the frequency spectrum, you can accurately assess what's going on in terms of the music you're mixing. And that's essentially what it does. The other thing that's quite useful is there are different options in the plugin for translation environments. So you can go through a couple of options and get some idea and hear what your music will sound like on a typical laptop or on a smartphone, or on a Bluetooth box, or different playback scenarios, even a television, actually. I remember there was one preset that would let you listen through your software, through your headphones. It will give you the option to hear what your music sounds like through a TV speaker. So that also gives you a ballpark idea for translation. In some ways, that's quite useful because it saves you taking up a recording, going upstairs, getting into your car, putting it on your car stereo or whatever you have, and then listening to it. So you can actually listen to it. So that's essentially what I think these sound referencing plugins actually do. Certainly, that's the functionality of the software plugin from SonarWorks Sound Reference ID that I use.
Yeah, and like you say, you got these ones that can have the cross feed in there as well. So it's there's so many different options out there, but it just allows you to create a more neutral response from the headphone. And the only other thing I just wanted to kind of mention is it's something that's quite important is the impedance of a headphone. And I kind of classified this as the impedance, and it's the how do you actually get the sound from your computer. And obviously you're going to need some form of dedicated, where it's an interface, digital to analog converter, etc. So you're talking things like, do you go down the route of an interface and use the dedicated headphone jack on the interface? If you're going to go down that option, obviously you need to make sure that the impedance of your headphone, let's just make sure that your headphone, the output of your interface can drive those headphones. Because if you have the headphone output of an interface and it hasn't got enough power to drive a high impedance headphone, you're going to start to have problems about how you hear, hear through your headphones. So you really want to focus on that as well. You can get dedicated headphone amps and headphone digital analog converters. So it's, sometimes they come in a combi unit, or sometimes you buy the items separately. So you have a headphone amp that then connects into the actual digital to analog converter. Sometimes people just like using an interface, but you need to make sure that you get a headphone with an impedance that matches the the output of your headphones, or vice versa. If you choose a headphone that's got a high impedance, then make sure you can get a source that's going to drive enough power to it, so you can get the best sound possible from your headphone. So, yeah, that's it. That's the spotlight topic this week. Can you use headphones exclusively for music production? Yeah, I think that's a resounding yes. And we covered some of the challenges, some of the positives, and we also talked about some of the tips and uses for headphones. So, yeah, great one, Tony. That was a good, certainly information-filled episode this week, and really looking forward to doing more of these episodes coming up. We'd like some feedback, please, guys. If you're watching these types of videos, one of the things we're very conscious of is the fact that the length of the videos themselves. We are going to put this into a formal podcast because we're conscious that not everyone has the time to sit into watching an hour and a half video. So we are going to put these into a podcast format, which will be released on the typical podcast platforms. So if you don't want to watch the video, at least you can listen to this when you're in the car, or whatever you're doing, your leisure activities. You might be able to listen to this podcast as well. We're also up for some feedback on whether you would like us to continue doing this more a long format. Maybe you'd like us to break this up into, maybe do a new spotlight one day. Maybe we can break this up into the actual spotlight topic another day, so you can kind of have two different episodes, really break it up. So let us know what your thoughts are in relation to how you want us to deliver this format to you. That will be very much appreciated. And as always, if you've got any topics you'd like us to discuss, please let us know in the comments section down below, because we're doing our best to kind of cover some topics which we think that will have benefit to you. But if there's anything in particular you want us to cover, please let us know in the comments section down below. So yeah, Tony, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, mate, and thanks for your wonderful insight as normal. And I'm really looking forward to not only the next episode, but I'm looking forward to updates on the EP, mate. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's been a pleasure as always, Smudge.
That's great stuff. And that's thanks from me, folks. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Coffee Beans and Music Scenes, coming real soon. Thanks, guys.